few years ago, I was deep in a rabbit hole that started with a single feminist destroyed compilation. I was 14, sitting in a dark room, feeling that specific, itchy kind of teenage loneliness. The kind where you're convinced you're the only one who doesn't fit. On screen, a fast-talking man with a sharp suit was explaining exactly why I felt that way. He told me the world was rigged, that my lack of a social circle wasn't a personal failure, but the result of a modern society that had systematically weakened men. It felt like an adrenaline shot. I wasn't just a lonely kid anymore, I was a soldier in a culture war. I spent hours watching looks-maxing tutorials and pickup artists, convinced these influencers were the only ones who cared about my success. They had the jawlines, the money, and the attention I craved. I was the perfect customer, ready to buy the course, ready to pledge my digital allegiance. But then a simple, blunt conversation with my father about our own family's values punctured the bubble. The ironclad logic of the internet hit the messy reality of real life, and I began to see the cracks in the mirror. What I didn't realize then was that the man on the screen didn't actually want me to self-improve. If I truly became confident, I'd stop clicking. If I actually felt secure, I'd stop buying. He needed me to stay anxious to keep his power. But here's the truly unsettling part. This isn't just a story about lonely teenagers on YouTube. That exact psychological mechanism, identifying a deep-seated insecurity, amplifying it until it feels like a life or death threat, and then presenting yourself as the only strong man capable of fixing it, is the ancient, recurring blueprint for authoritarianism. Whether it's an influencer selling a traditional masculinity course or a politician using fear-mongering ads about nuclear annihilation to secure a presidency, the tactic is identical. We think we're choosing a leader to protect us, but we might just be the product in a very dangerous sales pitch. Why is it that in our moments of greatest fear, we are so incredibly eager to hand over the keys to our own freedom?
Wow. I mean, that's incredibly powerful. And it's terrifying because it works. It really does.
It's so effective.
Then listening to you say that, the first thing that hits me isn't even, the politics of it. It's the sheer scale.
Yeah.
You were 14 in a dark room. But right now, this very second, there are millions of men, and they're not all 14. They're young, they're old, they're in Seoul, in London, in Kentucky, and they are sitting in that exact same dark room.
Feeling that same itch.
Feeling that same itch. And the machinery that's been built to scratch it it's so much more sophisticated now than just a guy in a suit talking fast.
Oh, absolutely.
We're not just talking about influencers anymore, are we? We're talking about a global political strategy that is actively weaponizing that feeling of loneliness.
That's the connection I really want to dig into today. Because it feels like we moved from, buy my ebook on how to talk to girls, to vote for me, and I'll burn the whole system down in like the blink of an eye. And I don't think most people see that those two things are actually the exact same sales pitch.
They are the same pitch. That's the core of what we need to take apart. We have to draw that invisible line, from the bedroom to the ballot box.
Exactly.
Because when we look at the data, and I mean, when we really get into the numbers from South Korea's labor market, or we look at the algorithmic audits of TikTok coming out of Europe, or voting patterns in the US Rust Belt, we see a pattern. It's a pipeline.
A pipeline that starts with what?
It starts with personal misery, often very valid economic misery, and it transmutes it, like alchemy, into political rage.
Before we get too abstract with, socioeconomic forces, I want to make this real.
Yeah.
It's so easy to just say economic misery and sort of move on. But what does that actually feel like? We found this profile during our research. We can just call him Victor. He's from Eastern Europe, living in one of those towns that, it feels like it's permanently gray,
The post-industrial hangover. Yeah. I know exactly the kind of place.
That's it. The factories are still standing, but they're just skeletons. You see the broken windows, the rusted gates. Victor grew up on stories about his dad. His dad worked at the main plant for 40 years. And in Victor's memory, his dad wasn't just, a worker. He was a king in his own castle.
He was the pillar.
He was the pillar. He put food on the table. He had the respect of the entire community. He had a defined place in the universe. He was the provider.
And that word is so key, provider.
Yeah.
It's not a job description, is it? It's an identity script. It's how that whole generation defined what it meant to be a man.
Right. So now you look at Victor. He's, say, 25. The factory's shut down, or if it's even open, it's just hiring temps on these awful 0-hour contracts.
No security.
None. He can't afford his own apartment, so he's still living with his parents.
Yeah.
He can't even think about getting married or starting a family. So in the traditional sense, by the script he was given, he has failed to become a man.
He has a status deficit, but what it really means is shame.
It's shame. He's walking around carrying this thing that feels like a physical weight on his shoulders.
And this is where the danger really starts. Because if you go to Victor and you say, hey, listen, global economic shifts and automation have rendered your region less competitive,
Yeah.
that doesn't help him.
It's just noise.
Yeah.
It doesn't fix the shame.
Right. But then he goes online and he finds a community, a voice that says, Victor, you didn't fail.
You were robbed.
You were robbed. They took it from you. Exactly. And the they is never macroeconomics. It's never a complex global trade policy.
No, it's a person. It's a group you can hate.
It's a war on men. They tell him the reason he doesn't have his father's life is because feminists took it, or immigrants took it, or this liberal elite decided to emasculate him on purpose.
And it's a seduction. Because it turns that shame, which is an isolating, corrosive feeling, into anger. And anger feels better. Anger feels like power.
And that anger is the soil where authoritarianism grows. I mean, we see this dynamic playing out almost perfectly if we look at South Korea right now.
Yeah.
The data coming out of there around what they call the gender war it is absolutely staggering. It's probably the most extreme example of this status deficit in the entire developed world.
I know there was this massive, massive swing in the young male vote there in a recent election, but can you break down the why of it? I mean, is it really just as simple as they don't like feminism?
It's so much deeper than that. It's structural. So South Korea has what economists call a dualized labor market.
Okay, what does that mean?
Imagine a cliff. On top of the cliff, you have the insiders. These are the people who get jobs at the chaebols, the huge conglomerates like Samsung or Hyundai. If you land a job there, you're set for life. High pay, incredible benefits, social status. You have, by all societal standards, made it as a man.
Yeah, the bottom of the cliff.
Everybody else, the outsiders, they're stuck in precarious work, low-wage jobs, the gig economy, small businesses that could fail at any moment. There's no security. And the ladder to get up that cliff, it's basically been pulled up.
So the competition for those few good spots is insane.
Yeah. Young men spend their entire youth in what's called spec accumulation, just gathering certificates, test scores, internships, anything, just to have a 1% chance of making it to the top of that cliff.
So you have an entire generation of men who were raised with that traditional expectation. You must be the breadwinner, the provider.
Right.
But the economy has made it mathematically impossible for 90% of them to ever achieve it.
And this gap between the expectation and the reality, it creates what researchers call toxic anxiety. They're failing a test they didn't even write. And this is where the politics gets so explosive.
Because it becomes a zero-sum game.
It becomes a zero-sum game. In that kind of hyper-competitive environment, if a woman gets one of those coveted jobs at Samsung, a young man doesn't see that as progress. He sees it as a job he didn't get. So when the government introduces policies to help women enter the workforce or to address the gender pay gap, these young men don't see it as a move toward equality. They see it as reverse discrimination. They see the state actively rigging the game against them when they already feel like they're drowning.
So they don't necessarily wake up in the morning hating women. They wake up terrified of economic oblivion, and a politician points at women and says, see them, they're the reason you're drowning.
That is the mechanism, 100%. And we saw the political result. A massive consolidated block of young men swung hard to the conservative, openly anti-feminist candidate.
And they voted for him. Why?
They voted for a strongman figure who promised to crush what he called the anti-male agenda. They voted for him because he validated their suffering. He told them their anxiety was real, and he promised he would destroy the people who were causing it.
This brings us right to the strongman persona itself. It's something we see in Russia with Putin, in Turkey with Erdogan, and of course all over these online spaces. There's a very specific performance happening here, isn't there? It's not just about, being tough. There's a duality to it.
There is. It's what some political scientists call Janus-faced masculinity, after the two-faced Roman god. It's brilliant in a completely terrifying way. These leaders essentially wear two masks.
Okay, so what's mask number one?
Mask number one is the bad boy.
The guy who flips the table.
The disruptor. He's the guy who, rides a horse shirtless or uses vulgar language or publicly insults the norms of polite society. This is incredibly appealing to someone like Victor.
Right.
Victor feels like the polite system, the democratic institutions, the courts, the HR departments, that whole system has failed him. He hates the rules because following the rules made him a loser. So when a leader comes along and just smashes the rules, when he mocks the institutions, Victor cheers. He thinks, finally, someone is punching back for me.
It's cathartic. It's like watching a revenge movie play out in real life.
But then, once that leader has captured all that anger, he puts on mask number 2, the good father. He pivots. He says, I am the only one who can protect you. He becomes the defender of faith, of family, of the nation. He promises to restore the natural order, which is, of course, the order where Victor's dad was the king.
So he uses the bad boy energy to get in the door, and then he uses the good father energy to lock the door behind him.
And notice what both of those masks have in common.
They bypass democracy.
They completely bypass democracy. The bad boy says the laws don't apply to him. The good father says he knows what's best for the children, so he doesn't need to ask them. The core message is, you don't need a parliament. You don't need checks and balances. You just need me.
And for a guy who feels completely powerless, handing over your own agency to a Superman figure must feel like a relief. You don't have to worry anymore. Daddy's home.
That is the trade. That's the transaction at the heart of all this. You trade your political freedom for a feeling of psychological security. There's even data to back this up. A study in Spain looking at voters for the populist VOX party found that masculinity and sexism were huge predictors. When men feel a masculinity threat, they seek out leaders who perform this exaggerated, tough persona.
But how do they find these guys? I mean, Victor might see a poster in his town square, but for most guys today, especially younger guys, this entire journey starts on a screen. So I want to talk about that pipeline, because I don't think people understand how aggressive and automated it is now. Let's talk about another profile.
Leo, he's our case study from London.
Yeah, and Leo is basically every guy I went to high school with. He's not political at all. He's just vague fee. He's maybe 19. He's feeling a little soft around the middle. Maybe he got rejected by a girl he liked. He decides he wants to get his act together.
Pulse.
Completely innocent. He opens up TikTok or YouTube and he searches how to build muscle.
The most harmless entry point you can imagine.
Right. He watches a video about protein intake. Then he watches one about the proper form for a deadlift.
Yeah.
But then the recommendation engine kicks in. And this is where that safer scrolling report we looked at becomes an absolute horror story.
The speed of the radicalization in that report, I mean, it's the part of this that genuinely keeps me up at night. They set up these bot counts to mimic the behavior of a young man like Leo. They started with neutral interests and just tracked how long it took for the feed to pivot from fitness to hate.
And the number they found was
5 days.
5 days.
Less than a work week. In 5 days, the algorithm figured out that men who like gym content also tend to engage with anti-feminist content, so it just starts peppering it in. The study found a 4-fold increase in misogynistic videos on the For You page in under a week.
And it's not like it's a sudden jump to, swastikas and overt hate speech. Right? It's so much more subtle than that. It's the boil the frog method.
It's incredibly sophisticated. It starts with content about men's mental health. It'll serve up videos saying men are depressed, society doesn't care about you. And Leo watches that and thinks, yeah, you know what? I do feel that way. He feels seen.
Okay, enough.
Then it shifts to stoicism and discipline. Content about control your emotions, be a rock, be an alpha. Okay, that still sounds like pretty standard self-help, but then the US versus them narrative starts to creep in. Why are you depressed? It's because women have it easy and society is built for them and you have it hard.
It's not like these boring lectures. It's memes. It's gamified.
That's the lulz defense. It's a key tactic. If a video says something truly horrific about women, but it's wrapped in a SpongeBob meme or it's set to some trending funny soundbite, it disarms your critical thinking.
And if you get offended, you're the problem.
You're the problem. It's just a joke, bro. Lighten up. It's a way to normalize truly radical ideas by making them seem like just another part of casual internet culture.
And before Leo even knows what's happening, he's not just looking for gym tips anymore. He's deep in what we call the manosphere. And we saw that breakdown of the ecosystem. It's like a whole taxonomy of despair. You've got the pickup artists, the men's rights guys.
And that EPFL study from Switzerland shows a very clear migration pattern. It's a funnel. A user like Leo, he usually starts in the PUA or pickup artist space. Here's a trick to get a girl.
But the tricks don't always work.
So he gets frustrated, then he tends to move over to MRA, or men's rights activism. The narrative there is, it's not your fault, the laws and the system are rigged against us.
And from there,
Often they drift into MGTOW men going their own way. The idea there is, forget women entirely, they're not worth the trouble. I'm checking out of society.
and what's the final stop on that train?
The alt-right, or even darker, what's known as the black pill.
We really need to define black pill. I hear it thrown around a lot, but the actual philosophy behind it it's incredibly dark.
It's pure biological nihilism. So the red pill, which came before it, says, if you see the truth about society, you can learn to play the game and win.
Okay.
The black pill says, the truth is you lost before you were even born. It's a philosophy that claims your value, your attractiveness, your entire life's outcome is 100% determined by your genetics, your bone structure, your height, the size of your wrists. If you aren't born a Chad, it's over.
That's the catchphrase you see everywhere in those communities.
It's their mantra, and it's designed to breed total, absolute hopelessness. And this is the great paradox of it all. You would think that level of hopelessness would make people passive, make them give up.
But it doesn't.
It does the opposite. It makes them incredibly volatile. Because if you believe the current system, which to them is both biology and society, is permanently and irrevocably rigged against you and you can't fix it through self-improvement, what's the only option you have left?
Burn it all down.
You burn it all down. You need a system reset. You start craving a dictator who will come in, smash the existing order to pieces, and enforce a new one from the top down. The black pill creates a desperate demand for authoritarianism because democracy, with its slow, incremental change, is useless to them. They feel they're doomed now. They want the table flipped now.
So Leo starts his journey just wanting to control his own body, to get in shape, and he ends up adopting a worldview that says he has zero control over anything unless a strong man takes over.
It's a tragic irony, isn't it? He went online looking for agency, and what he found was a cult of victimhood.
A cult that points him directly toward political extremism. But, we can't really talk about any of this without talking about the money.
The
Economics.
The economics.
Because as much as this is about loneliness and algorithms and psychology, it's also about the very simple fact that guys like Marcus, our third profile, are just broke.
Marcus is the reality check for all of this. He lives in a major U.S. city, high cost of living. He's a gig worker. He drives for Uber, maybe does DoorDash on the side. He's working 60, 70 hours a week.
Just to survive.
Just to survive. He has 3 roommates. He is doing everything right, according to the hustle culture playbook, but he's just treading water. He's going nowhere.
And he looks at the American dream that maybe his grandpa had. The house, the stay-at-home wife, the pension, the little boat, and it looks like science fiction to him.
It is science fiction for his generation. And this is where we have to talk about neoliberalism. And I know that's a big academic buzzword, but stick with me for a second.
Make it down.
Neoliberalism, simply put, is the economic shift over the last 40 years toward a society where the market is God. Efficiency is the highest value. And social safety nets, unions, regulations, all that stuff gets cut. For a guy like Marcus, it means the gig economy.
Which is marketed as this cool thing, be your own boss. But in reality, it means you have no boss to protect you, no HR department, no union, and absolutely no stability.
And no dignity. That's the piece of the puzzle we so often miss. Work isn't just about a paycheck. It's about social connection, a feeling of contributing to something. Victor's dad, he stood on an assembly line next to other men. They complained together, they organized together, they had a shared identity. Marcus is completely alone in his car. His boss is a faceless algorithm on his phone. If he gets sick, he starves.
He's atomized.
He is an atomized unit of labor. He's invisible. And he feels it.
63%. That was the number from that State of UK Men report. 63% of men feel that no one cares if men are okay.
Statistic. That's the majority of the male population feeling completely abandoned by the social contract. And guess who steps into that enormous void?
The authoritarian.
They walk right in and they say the 2 words these men are desperate to hear. You.
Well, the progressive left is often, fairly or not, perceived as being focused on historical privilege, telling men, you're part of the patriarchy, check your privilege. The populist right looks at Marcus sleeping in his car between delivery shifts and says, you don't look very privileged to us. You look like you're getting screwed.
And that validation is like a drug. It doesn't matter if the populist politician is actually a billionaire whose policies will make Marcus's life harder. He speaks to Marcus's pain.
He offers heroic manhood as a consolation prize.
He says, look, I can't give you a stable union job or affordable housing, but I can give you a uniform. I can give you an enemy. I can tell you that you are not a gig worker. You are a warrior in a great battle for the soul of Western civilization.
So he replaces their lost economic status with a feeling of cultural status.
And for a man who feels like he's dying, that feels like a lifeline. But it comes at a terrible price. Because the data shows that men who buy into these manosphere narratives, this scarcity mindset, the idea that for them to win, women and immigrants must lose, they are 6 times more likely to endorse anti-democratic sentiments.
6 times. That's not a correlation. That's a cause and effect pipeline.
And worse, in that same UK report, over half of the men surveyed, over 50%, agreed with the statement that the country would be better off with a strong leader who doesn't have to bother with parliament or elections.
Oh, so they are literally saying, take my vote away, just fix the pain.
Yes, because they view democracy as the very thing that failed them. To Marcus, democracy is the system that raised his rent and lowered his wages and left him alone. Why in the world would he fight to save it? He's in survival mode. And when you're in survival mode, you don't want to debate. You want a commander.
So when we pull the camera all the way back, and we look at the whole picture, Victor, Leo, Marcus, they aren't villains in this story.
No, they are casualties.
They're men reacting to valid, screaming alarms going off in their lives. The alarm of economic obsolescence, the alarm of profound social isolation, the alarm of status loss.
But the manosphere and these authoritarian leaders, they're the ones who come in and rewire the alarm system. So instead of the alarm bell saying, we need better labor laws or we need to build stronger communities, they rewire it so the bell just screams, we need to crush the enemy.
It's a fundamental redirection of energy. They take that kinetic energy of young male frustration, which, could be used to build things, to build unions or demand better housing or create art, and they funnel all of it into a battering ram aimed directly at the walls of democracy.
And that brings us right back to your opening story, back to the sales pitch. The product being sold isn't a better life for Marcus. If Marcus actually got a stable job and found a loving partner and felt secure in his life, he would stop watching the rage bait videos. He'd stop clicking. He would stop voting for the arsonist.
The strong man needs the follower to stay sick.
The influencer needs you to stay insecure about your body, so you keep buying his supplements and his courses. The dictator needs you to stay terrified of the other, so you keep him in power. Their entire business model, their entire hold-on power depends on your continued anxiety.
It's a parasitic relationship, but it masquerades as a symbiotic one.
They're selling salt water to men who are dying of thirst. It looks like water, it feels like a drink when it goes down, but the more of it you swallow, the sicker you get.
And the sicker you get, the more desperately you beg for another drink. So we're left with this pretty grim reality. We often talk about liberty dying in darkness, or you imagine it being taken by force with tanks in the street. But looking at these stacks of data, looking at the algorithm audits and the polling, that's just not how it happens anymore, is it?
It's not a conquest, it's a transaction.
We trade it away.
Yeah.
We trade the messiness, the difficulty, the slowness, and the uncertainty of democracy for the comfort of a strong man who looks us in the eye and says, I see you. You matter.
And I will handle it.
The question really isn't who is selling this authoritarian vision. We know who they are. The real question is why so many of us are so desperate to buy it. Perhaps the most dangerous thing about the cage is that from the inside, when you're scared enough, it starts to feel like a fortress.
And until we can offer a better deal, a real one with real dignity and real connection, that sales pitch is going to keep on working.